Hello, my friends. My name is Silas Crawford, and if there is an old knife in your kitchen drawer with a dark blade, a cracked-looking wooden handle, or a little rust along the edge, do not decide it is junk before you turn it over and read the steel. Some old kitchen knives are worth only a few dollars. Others can bring $75, $200, $500, or far more when the right maker, type, handle, material, condition, and rarity come together. Today, we are counting down 10 old knives that can hide in ordinary kitchens, carving sets, inherited boxes, knife blocks, and junk drawers. And I am going to show you what separates common cutlery from pieces collectors and serious cooks actually chase. Before we start, tell me where you are watching from and whether your family still has one of those old knives that always seems to rust no matter how carefully somebody dries it. Iowa, Ohio, California, England, Australia, it does not matter. And stay with me to number 2, because that is where an old carving set can stop being ordinary household cutlery and turn into a serious piece of American history. Let me be straight with you first. Age alone does not make a knife valuable. Plenty of old stainless knives are common. Plenty of worn carbon steel knives are useful but modest. The money comes from the exact combination: maker, type, blade material, handle material, condition, completeness, and rarity. That is why reading the marks matters more than guessing from the rust. Most people never do that. They see an old blade, sharpen it hard, polish the handle, or throw it away, and only later realize the markings were the whole story. The safest rule is simple: photograph first, identify second, clean third, and only then decide whether the knife deserves sharpening, selling, or keeping. Quick favor before we start reading the steel: if you like learning how to identify valuable old household tools before somebody sells them for pocket change, subscribe to the channel. Every week, we break down makers, markings, materials, dates, and the small details that separate ordinary kitchen pieces from things collectors chase, and the next good one may already be sitting in your own drawer. Now, start with where to look. The blade itself is obvious, but do not stop there. Check the tang where the blade meets the handle. Look at the handle, the seams, the bolsters, the rivets, and every junction where two materials meet. Search for a maker name, logo, country of origin, trademark, date code, or any small stamp that looks intentional. Use side lighting from a flashlight if the engraving is faint. Clean grease and loose dirt carefully enough to read the marks, but do not sand or repolish the knife before you know what it is. A shallow stamp can disappear faster than you think. The next distinction is carbon steel versus stainless. Carbon steel is generally the older material in this category. It darkens, develops patina, and can rust. That is not automatically damage. In fact, a blade that stains and rusts can be exactly what tells you to slow down. Collectors and cooks value old carbon steel for the edge it can take, and even a rusty antique carbon steel kitchen knife can still be worth around $75 if the maker, type, and condition line up. Stainless is usually marked stainless and is generally later. Some stainless knives are collectible because of maker or design, but the word itself does not carry the same age signal. Then look at the handle. Bone, stag, or horn, hardwood, old celluloid, and especially sterling silver can multiply interest compared with common plastic. A large knife with a noble handle material often deserves more attention than a small, plain utility knife. Sterling handles should carry sterling, 925, or an appropriate hallmark. Stag or horn often shows natural texture and variation rather than the uniform molded look of plastic. Wood should be studied for grain, old rivets, shrinkage, and whether the wear matches the blade. Now identify the type. A carving knife or carving set usually includes a long slicing knife and matching fork, sometimes with a sharpening steel, often in a fitted case. A forged chef's knife, especially an old French sabatier, is a working kitchen knife with serious collector and cooking appeal. Antique table knives can become valuable when they carry sterling handles. Pocket knives from Case or Queen often live in the kitchen junk drawer, even though collectors treat them as a separate hobby. Old butcher knives from Dexter Russell, Foster Brothers, and similar makers deserve research too. Country of origin helps. Sheffield, England points toward one of the great historic cutlery centers. Thiers in France points you toward the sabatier tradition. American 19th century cutlers, especially names from San Francisco such as Michael Price and Will and Fink, can turn a family carving set into a dream find. Condition matters just as much. Mint or unused pieces earn a premium because that survival is unusual. Complete sets and original fitted cases do better than loose pieces. Intact handles, tight joints, readable marks, and blades without serious loss help. Broken blades, cracked or missing handle scales, loose seams, exposed joints, and deep rust that has eaten the maker's mark hurt badly. Light rust on carbon steel does not erase value. Missing metal can. Number 10 is the broad rule that gets you into the right drawer. Any genuinely old carbon steel kitchen knife. Look for a blade that darkens or rusts, no stainless mark, and a handle in wood or bone with construction that feels older than a modern molded knife. This category alone is not automatically rare, but it is where many overlooked pieces begin. A good old carbon steel knife, even with visible rust, can be worth around $75. The reason is simple. Old carbon steel was made to take an edge, and cooks still seek it out. The mistake is throwing one away because the blade looks black. Patina is not the same as deep corrosion. If the edge is intact, the maker can still be read, and the handle is sound. Research it. Number 9 is Sabatier from France, a specially forged carbon steel chef's knives associated with tier. Look for Sabatier on the blade, but do not stop there because several factories have used the name. The specific maker, exact mark, age, and construction determine the real value. A traditional example should show forged carbon steel, a strong blade profile, and usually a riveted wooden handle. These knives earned a legendary reputation among cooks because of balance, edge quality, and cutting feel. Values can range from tens to hundreds of dollars depending on the specific manufacturer, age, size, and condition. A generic modern Sabatier is not the same thing as an old tier-made carbon steel example. This is one of the places where people hear a famous name and stop researching too early. Do not read every word around the mark. If you found an old Sabatier in a thrift store knife bin, would you recognize it before somebody sharpened half the blade away? Tell me below, because exact manufacturer is the difference between a nice user and a real collector find. Number 8 is antique Sheffield cutlery from England. Look for Sheffield and England on the blade or tang, then inspect the handle carefully. Stag, horn, and bone handles are especially desirable, and complete old sets can carry strong appeal. Sheffield was one of the world's great centers of cutlery production, and the name connects the knife to a long industrial tradition. Good individual pieces and carving sets with noble handle materials can sell in the hundreds of dollars. The value rises when the blade is clean but not over-polished, the maker is identifiable, the handle is original, and the set remains together. Do not assume every knife stamped as Sheffield is rare. Thousands were made. The exact cutler, pattern, materials, age, and condition decide the premium. Number 7 is Case XX, the pocket knife. That does not look like it belongs in a kitchen video until you remember where old pocket knives usually end up. The junk drawer beside corkscrews, batteries, and takeout menus. Look for Case XX and other W.R. Case & Sons markings. Case change tang stamps over time, and collectors use those stamp variations and date codes to narrow production. That dating system is a big part of the hobby. Typical collectible examples can land around $70 to $300, while rarer early patterns and scarce variations can go higher. Blade wear, original handle scales, pattern number, tang stamp, and whether blades snap properly all matter. A common recent case is not automatically valuable. The old or scarce variant is what you are hunting. Number 6 is Queen Cutlery Company, including Queen City and knives with Winterbottom style jigged bone handles. Queen dates back to the early 20th century with production roots from 1902, and older examples have a dedicated following. Look for Queen City, appropriate tang stamps, and the distinctive jigged bone texture associated with Winterbottom handles. Values vary widely, but older and rarer examples occupy the stronger end of the collectible pocket knife market. The right early knife can outperform a common modern folder by a wide margin. Again, do not judge from handle color alone. Compare the stamp, pattern, bone jigging, blade shape, and construction. Number 5 is vintage Chicago cutlery, especially American-made examples from the 1970s with riveted walnut handles. Look for Chicago cutlery, the characteristic walnut scales, and model numbers such as 94-5. These knives were working kitchen tools, which is why so many survived with scratches, sharpening wear, and darkened handles. The better examples have become increasingly appreciated for edge quality and straightforward American construction. Its values can run from tens of dollars to more than $100, depending on model and condition. A rare model in excellent shape does better than a common chef's knife worn thin from 40 years of sharpening. And this is also where the "you probably have one" promise becomes very real. Plenty of families still have an old Chicago cutlery knife because somebody bought it new and simply never replaced it. If there is one in your drawer, read the model before you sharpen it again. Number 4 is the Victorian carving set with bone, horn, or stag handles. This is the classic inheritance piece. Long carving knife, matching fork, sometimes a sharpening steel, all fitted into a velvet-lined case nobody has opened since Thanksgiving stopped being formal. Look for natural handle material, decorative ferrules, matching construction, a maker's stamp on the blade or tang, and the original fitted box. Complete sets in strong condition can bring hundreds of dollars, and the case matters because it proves the pieces belong together and protects the presentation. A loose carving knife may be interesting. The same knife with matching fork, steel, and original box is a different object to a collector. Check the handles for cracks, looseness, exposed seams, and later repairs. Stag, horn, and bone can shrink with age, so a little movement is not unusual, but broken scales and crude glue work hurt. Do not strip the old finish trying to make the handles look new. Original surface is part of the appeal. Before the top 3, remember this: rust can hide valuable steel, but identification comes first. Number 3 is the antique table knife with a sterling silver handle, and this is where a plain-looking dinner knife can move into a completely different category. Turn the knife over and inspect the handle rather than just the blade. Look for sterling, 925, or a proper English hallmark if the piece is British. Many of these knives were made with a separate steel blade fitted in a hollow silver handle, so the handle material is the big clue. A single old sterling-handled table knife can sell from tens into the hundreds of dollars depending on maker, pattern, condition, and age, while complete matching sets can be worth considerably more. Check the seams where the blade enters the handle. Loose joints, splits, solder repairs, and exposed filler hurt value. Do not assume every silver-colored handle is sterling. Plate exists, and some handles are nickel alloys. Read the mark. If the handle is heavy, elaborately worked, and clearly marked sterling, slow down before you toss it into the same box as ordinary table knives. Number 2 is the 19th century San Francisco carving set, especially work associated with Michael Price and Will and Fink from roughly the 1860s through the end of the 19th century. These are dream finds because they combine American cutlery history, regional craftsmanship, scarce makers, and often fine handle materials. Look for Michael Price, Will and Fink San Francisco references, or other cutler marks on the blade or tang. Study the construction. Fine carving knives and matching forks may show beautifully fitted handles in horn, bone, hardwood, or other noble materials, decorative ferrules, hand-finished metalwork, and a fitted presentation case when you are very lucky. Elite pieces and complete sets can reach strong collector prices, and the best examples can move well beyond ordinary kitchen cutlery money. There is no single blanket price because maker, exact form, condition, completeness, and provenance matter enormously. This is also where a family story deserves attention, or if the set came west with a relative, belonged to a hotel, ranch, restaurant, or known household, save every note, photograph, receipt, and box that came with it. Provenance will not rescue a damaged common knife, but documented history can strengthen an already important piece. And this is the one I told you to stay for, because a carving set can look like formal dining clutter until one small San Francisco mark changes the entire research path. Number 1 is the rare knife made with precious materials, exceptional authorship, limited production, or documented historical significance. This is the top because value stops being about ordinary kitchen utility and becomes a combination of cutlery, decorative art, and rarity. Look for sterling silver, gold details, worked bone or stag, finely carved horn, unusual inlay, exceptional engraving, limited edition markings, an important maker, or a form tied to a rare historical period. Pieces using precious metals can pass $1,000, and rare historical knives can reach high auction figures. But this is exactly where you must resist the temptation to call every ornate knife a fortune. Fancy decoration does not prove age. A silver-colored handle does not prove sterling. A carved handle does not prove 19th century workmanship. Cross the maker, type, blade material, handle material, condition, construction, and documented history together. If those clues agree, then you have a reason to involve a specialist. Now let us bring the whole list back to the promise in the title. You probably do have one of the broad categories we talked about. Maybe it is not a museum-level Michael Price carving set. Maybe it is the old carbon steel knife your grandfather sharpened for decades. Maybe it is a Sabatier chef's knife that stains if somebody leaves it wet. Maybe it is a Case XX pocket knife sitting beside the scissors. Maybe it is an old Chicago cutlery chef's knife with walnut scales, a Sheffield carving knife, or a fitted Victorian carving set nobody has used in years. That is the point. Valuable knives do not always arrive in velvet museum cases. They survive because people keep useful things. Kitchens are full of objects nobody researched because they still cut. The rusted blade gets dismissed because modern stainless does not rust. The old bone handle looks cracked and outdated. The carving case stays closed because nobody serves roast dinner that way anymore. And a pocket knife gets tossed in a junk drawer because it is not thought of as kitchen cutlery at all. Most people do not know what they have because they never read the blade or tang. So here's the method I want you to use before you sharpen, polish, give away, or sell anything. First, photograph the knife exactly as found. Take a full photograph of both sides of the blade. Photograph the maker's mark, tang stamp, country of origin, handle, rivets, seams, bolsters, and every unusual feature in close-up. If it is a set, photograph the whole set together and photograph the case before moving pieces around. Second, read every marking. Write the letters exactly as they appear. Do not mentally correct a strange spelling or assume a worn word says something famous. A few surviving letters can be enough to identify a maker later. Third, identify the blade material. If the blade is marked stainless, note it. If it is carbon steel, it may darken or rust and develop patina. Do not deliberately rust a blade to test it. Instead, use existing patina, markings, maker information, and construction. If you already know the knife stains easily in kitchen use, that supports carbon steel. Fourth, identify the handle. Is it plastic, hardwood, bone, staghorn, old celluloid, sterling, silver, or something else? Look at natural grain and pores. Check whether both handle scales match. Study the rivets and seams. A valuable old blade with a badly replaced plastic handle is not the same object as one retaining its original stag or hardwood. Fifth, identify the type. Is it a chef's knife, butcher knife, carving fork, table knife, pocket knife, or specialty serving blade? Do not compare a carving knife to chef's knife prices just because both are long. Old butcher knives are worth a second look, too. Dexter and Dexter Russell, Foster Brothers, vintage K-Bar kitchen or utility knives, and other professional meat cutting tools can be collectible when the mark, age, and condition line up. Sixth, identify origin. Sheffield and England lead you toward British cutlery research. Thier and specific Sabatier makers point toward France. American maker names may lead to regional cutlery traditions. Old Wusthof and Henkel's carbon steel knives also deserve research, as do Schrade and Remington pocket knives that may have migrated into kitchen drawers. Seventh, judge condition honestly. Mint or unused condition can carry a strong premium because knives were made to be used. A pristine blade with original factory finish, sharp stamp, and untouched handle is unusual. But honest use is not the same as destruction. Light patina and shallow rust on carbon steel may be acceptable. A blade broken at the tip, sharpened until its original profile is gone, or eaten by deep corrosion loses much more. A cracked handle, missing scale, loose rivet, exposed joint, bad glue repair, or blade wobble hurts. On a carving set, missing the fork or sharpening steel can reduce completeness. Losing the fitted case can matter too. Eighth, do not restore before identification. This is one of the easiest ways to ruin a good find. Do not sand the blade until every gray mark disappears. Do not polish the tang stamp until the letters soften. Do not aggressively buff bone, staghorn, celluloid, or sterling. Do not replace rivets simply because they look old. Do not grind out pitting until the blade shape changes. And do not sharpen a collectible knife down to a new edge geometry before you know whether original condition matters. A working knife and a collector knife can require different decisions. Identify first. Ninth, watch for false positives. A recent stainless chef's knife with an old-fashioned shape is not valuable just because it looks traditional. Sabatier is especially tricky because multiple manufacturers have used the name. You need the specific factory or maker, age, stamp style, and construction. A generic Sabatier marked knife may be a perfectly good kitchen tool without carrying the premium of a desirable old Thiers example. A silver-colored handle is not automatically sterling. A molded plastic handle can imitate stag. Artificial patina can make newer steel look old. Reproduction carving sets and decorative knives exist. crossmaker type, blade material, handle material, construction, condition, and age clues together. No single photograph or stamp should be treated as definitive authentication for a high-value knife. Values throughout this video are estimates, and they vary with manufacturer, type, blade and handle material, condition, completeness, rarity, and the market at the time. The numbers come from real sale and auction territory, but they are not guarantees. A category can range from tens of dollars for a common working knife to thousands for a rare cutler, precious material piece, or documented historical example. Do not take the highest asking price you find online and declare that your knife is worth the same. Asking is not selling. When you are ready to research price, go to completed eBay listings and use the sold filter. Search the maker plus the exact model or type. If you have a case knife, include the pattern number and tank stamp era. If you have Chicago cutlery, include the model number. If it is Sheffield, include the cutler name and handle material. If it is Sabatier, identify the specific maker before comparing. Compare sold pieces in similar condition, not polished mint examples against a heavily worn blade. For rare 19th century carving sets, sterling handled sets, Michael Price, Will and Fink, or anything that appears to use precious materials, move beyond casual online listings. Take clear photographs and contact a reputable cutlery dealer, antiques specialist, or auction house for an appraisal before making an irreversible decision. A specialist can also help determine whether an unusual handle is genuinely stag, horn, sterling, or a later replacement. Keep the case, paperwork, receipts, labels, and family notes with the object. Completeness and documented history can matter, and there are more names worth knowing beyond the 10 positions today. Schrade, Remington, Vintage, K-Bar, Dexter, Russell, Foster Brothers, Old Carbon Steel, Wüsthof, and Henkel's can all deserve a second look depending on model, age, and condition. None is automatically a fortune. They are signals to research. The same rule applies to Sheffield table knives with bone handles and other regional cutlery not covered in the countdown. Now open the drawer tonight and work from the oldest looking knives outward. Check the dark carbon steel blade. Check the wooden handled chef's knife. Open the forgotten carving case. Look at the strange old table knives. Read every case or queen pocket knife in the junk drawer. Look for Sabatier, Sheffield, Chicago cutlery, case Essex Queen Michael Price, Will and Fink Sterling 925, and every mark you do not recognize. Photograph them before you change anything. Which find would surprise you most? A French Sabatier you have been using for years, a sterling handled table service, or a San Francisco carving set hiding in an inherited box? Tell me below. The knife that rusts may not be the one you should throw away. It may be the one telling you to finally read the name stamped into the steel.